Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our host, Colonel Thomas Tower, Commander 412th Test Wing, welcome to the Torch 1-1 Memorial Ceremony. My name is Chaplain Timothy Sessions, and I will serve as your narrator. In case of an emergency, the main exits are the hangar door to your right and the double doors that you came in behind you. If for any reason you need assistance, we have members to help escort you safely out. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors by the Edwards Air Force Base Blue Eagles Honor Guard, the singing of the national anthem of the United States by Staff Sergeant Alicia Cancel from the Band of the Golden West, and the invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallant the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Right shoulder. Horse. Holster, march.
Thank you. You can stand at ease. Now that we have our most important members here, I ask that you would join me for a quick word of prayer. Almighty God, this evening we gather to honor and remember our teammates who sacrificially gave their lives for our nation on the morning of 15 June 2026. Your word promises, "Blessed are those who grieve, for they shall be comforted." In this solemn moment, we ask for the blessing of your presence, the presence that brings true comfort. Fill this hangar with your peace, the peace that surpasses all understanding. May this memorial service serve as a milestone on our continued journey towards healing. Although we do not move on, and we will never forget this tragedy, we ask that you help us to move forward. Help us to honor the lives we have lost and to live in a way that forever honors their legacy. Restore our joy as we encourage one another and as we remember with profound fondness the lives of Colonel Greg Evil Watson, Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Journey Estrella, retired Lieutenant Colonel Miles Vicky Middleton, Major Robert Bolton D., Major Brad Slate Hovey, Major Alexander Smo Davis, Jeremy Bobby Smith, and Christopher Hustler Richard. Continue to watch over the families of these 8 brave souls. Bind us together as a community that cares for and loves one another with unceasing commitment. And finally, Father, we pray the timeless words of the Air Force hymn, "Lord, guard and guide the men who fly through the greatest spaces of the sky. Be with them traversing the air in darkening storms or sunshine fair. Aloft in solitudes of space, uphold them with thy saving grace. O God, protect the men who fly through lonely ways beneath the sky." I ask this prayer in your mighty name. You may be seated. Thank you, Edwards Air Force Base Blue Angels Honor Guard and Staff Sergeant Cancel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first host, Colonel Thomas Tower.
To the wives, children, parents, brothers, and sisters, and all who cherished the crew of Torch 11. My first words this evening are for you. We stand with you in grief, and we wrap our arms around you. The tragedy that occurred here 2 weeks ago today resonates far beyond the boundaries of this installation. The ripples of grief touch our local community and extend across a grateful nation. That reach is represented this evening by the guests gathered here tonight. Our congressional representatives, state legislators, and representatives, and local mayors in attendance. Thank you for your presence and your support as we navigate this difficult time. To General Wilsbach, Chief Wolf, and all the Air Force senior leaders who have joined us tonight, your presence speaks to the deep bonds within our service and is a testament to the lives we honor here tonight. General Hurry, your support and the support of General Kane in the immediate aftermath of this tragedy made an enormous difference to Team Edwards. Thank you. To the men and women who watched this tragic event unfold, and especially those who were duty-bound not to look away. Your composure, resilience, and focus in the face of heartbreak is a testament to the depth of your character and represents the very best of who we are as a nation. We are here this evening to walk the road of healing together. We are here to honor and celebrate the lives of our fallen brothers, 8 extraordinary Americans. Tonight we will hear from Lieutenant Colonel James Juxt McDonald and Colonel Matthew Swat Guasco, 2 of the leaders closest to those we lost. Before they speak, I would like to offer a few words on the specialized mission that they shared and the unique legacy they leave behind in our skies. Evil, Journey, Vicky, Smo, Bolton, Slate, Bobby, and Hustler. They flew as one. They represented the best of our test enterprise, a blended team of military, civilian, and contractor professionals, working side by side to forge the future of our Air Force. All military aviation is inherently dangerous, but the flight test enterprise bears a unique responsibility. We willingly place ourselves above the safety of this earth so that American warfighters may enter combat with absolute certainty and confidence in the tools we provide. The work that you, members of our Air Force test enterprise, carry out every day, the work that the crew of Torch 11 dedicated their lives to, is the foundation of our nation's military strength. The mission of this test wing is to sharpen American air power. We do this with pride and in concert with our Air Force Materiel Command and AFOTech teammates to deliver war-winning capabilities and enable, without fail, the overarching mission of our Air Force to fly, fight, and win. As we struggle with the sudden and heartbreaking loss, as we grieve, we look to the sky above, where we can find a measure of peace in the inherent beauty of the skies this crew loved so much. In 1941, a young pilot wrote of the profound freedom of flight, of leaving the weight of the world behind, to soar on laughter-silvered wings. In that spirit, we stand united. We will carry on. We will carry on the mission, and we will forever honor the crew of Torch 11, who have now and forever slipped the surly bonds of Earth.
Thank you, Colonel Tower. Ladies and gentlemen, representing the Air Force Operational Test and Evaluation Center, Detachment 5, Colonel Matthew Guasco, and representing the Global Power Bombers Combined Test Force, Lieutenant Colonel James McDonald.
Over the last few days, I've spent a lot of time wondering what I could possibly say about Evil, Journey, Vicky, Smo, Bolton, Slate, Bobby, and Hustler. The truth is, there are no words equal to this moment. No words that can explain a loss this profound. No words that can make sense of something that simply does not make sense. No words that can fill the empty desk. But there are names. And behind each of those names is a life that became a legacy. We remember Evil. Air Force Reserve Colonel Greg Evil Watson was a loving husband and father, a tactical expert who was always ready to lend a helping hand, and a leader deeply committed to mentoring and developing the next generation. Evil was a mentor in every sense of the word. He invested in people, he taught, he coached, he challenged us to be better. And because he took the time to invest in us, so many of us became better aviators, better leaders, and better people. I know I certainly did. We remember Journey. Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Journey Estrella was a devoted husband and father, an exceptionally humble leader, and a true mentor to the B-52 and operational test community. Journey never sought the spotlight. He simply showed us what right looked like. His actions spoke louder than words ever could. His integrity, humility, and professionalism earned the respect of everyone who knew him. His legacy is not measured by awards or accomplishments alone, but by the people he influenced, the leaders he developed, and the standard he leaves for the rest of us to carry forward. We remember Vicky. Lieutenant Colonel retired Miles Vicky Middleton was a deeply devoted husband and father, an experienced test pilot and a veteran whose passion for service was matched only by his infectious smile that drew people to him. Vicky taught me what it meant to be a buff crew dog, and he did it the same way he did everything else, with a smile. His sense of humor was legendary, his laugh was contagious, and his calm, steady presence made every room better simply because he was in it. We remember Smo. Major Alexander Smo Davis was a phenomenal test leader and a technical wizard whose quick wit and ready smile kept a squadron moving toward mission success. He brought humor, perspective, and more puns than any team probably deserved. He reminded us that while the mission was important, so was taking care of each other. Somehow, even on our hardest days, Smo could make us smile, roll our eyes at one of his puns, and then laugh anyway. That's a gift few people have, and one we will never forget. We remember Bolton. Major Robert Bolton D was a devoted husband and father, and an exceptional test pilot whose charisma and passion for aviation inspired everyone around him. If there was a process that didn't make sense, Bolton wasn't going to let it stay that way. He saw problems others accepted and worked relentlessly to make things better for everyone. Bolton made our team stronger because he refused to settle for good enough. And because of that, everyone of us who flies, tests, and leads today does so in an organization that is better because Bolton was part of it. We remember Slate. Major Brad Slate Hovey was a devoted husband and father, a standout test pilot who embodied excellence in everything he did, and a leader who was always striving to make those around him better. Slate had a remarkable ability to bring people together. He built exceptional programs, strengthened our team, and accomplished all of it while building relationships that will endure far beyond his time with us. His kindness, his friendships, and his genuine care for people created bonds across the community that will outlast all of us. When I needed perspective or advice, I relied on Slate, and I know I wasn't the only one. We remember Bobby. Mr. Jeremy Bobby Smith was a cherished husband and father, an inspirational flight test leader, and a mentor whose passion for flight was matched only by his love for people and for this community. Nobody loved our bomber mission than Bobby. Nobody loved our squadron more than Bobby. Nobody loved test more than Bobby. That passion was contagious. When Bobby talked about our mission, you couldn't help but believe it a little more yourself. For over a decade at the 419th, Bobby led with a heart as much as expertise. He was always ready to help, always ready to support, and always there when the mission needed him most. We remember Hustler. Mr. Christopher Hustler Rashar was a proud husband and a father, a flight test leader with a sunny outlook and a quick laugh, who brought natural precision to the most complex missions. He loved what he did and made it fun to have him as part of our team. He was the definition of hardworking. He loved his family and never missed an opportunity to talk about the people he cared about most. Hustler carried himself with a quiet confidence that made the hardest tasks look easy. And because of that, his example will continue to guide the team long into the future. Losing Torch 1-1 hurts. Because we didn't just lose 8 phenomenal airmen. We lost friends. We lost mentors. We lost teammates. We lost people who made us laugh, who taught us, who challenged us, and who inspired us. People that we loved. Global Power Bomber will never be the same. There'll be moments when we expect to hear a voice, see a smile, see a familiar mustache, hear a dad joke, or walk into a room and look for someone who's no longer there. While their desk may be empty, their impact endures and will not be forgotten. To the families, thank you. Thank you for sharing them with us. Thank you for raising the husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, and teammates that we are privileged to know and serve beside. Please know they mattered more than words can express. People often say that no one is truly gone until the ripples they leave in the world fade away. Looking around this room today, I don't believe those ripples will ever vanish. Evil, Journey, Vicky, Bolton, Slate, Bobby, and Hustler live on in the lessons they taught us, the friendships they built, the families they loved, the teammates they inspired, and the stories we will continue to tell. They're woven into this team, into this wing, into this mission, and into each of us. Today and forever, we honor the crew of Torch 1-1.
We have all been searching for words strong enough to carry the weight of our hearts. But as the simple truth is, they don't exist. Grief is not something we solve. It's not a mountain we climb or an obstacle we overcome. It's something we learn to carry together. In the hours and days ahead, this hangar will empty. The uniforms will be hung back in closets. The flowers will fade. The calls and messages will become less frequent. But for the families, for the friends, and for the teammates, the love, and by very nature the grief, will remain. And that's not a sign of weakness. It's instead a reflection of how deeply these 8 men were truly loved. Over time, grief changes. It will never ask less of us, but it will ask something different. The sharp pain that takes our breath away eventually gives way to something quieter. It becomes the empty seat at Thanksgiving, the familiar laugh you still expect to hear in a hallway, the instinct to pick up the phone before remembering there will be no answer. Those moments never disappear entirely, but they become reminders, not only of what was lost, but of what was given. And what was given was extraordinary. Because while every life has an ending, every story has the power to live on. Years from now, young airmen and contractors will walk these halls having never met Evil, Journey, Vicky, Smo, Bolton, Slate, Bobby, or Hustler. Yet they will know them. They'll hear about a mentor who always made time to teach, a teammate who could make everyone laugh on the hardest day, a leader who refused to settle for good enough, a father whose greatest pride wasn't what he flew, but who waited for him at home. and the stories will go on. That is how memories become legacies, and legacies become legends. Legends are not created because someone was perfect. They're created because their lives continue to shape the lives of others. Each time we tell one of their stories, we ensure that another generation learns not only their names, but the kind of people they chose to be. That leaves something in our hands. We cannot replace them. We never will. But we can carry forward what they taught us. We can choose to mentor with greater patience, to lead with greater humility, to care for one another more intentionally, to love our families a little more fiercely, to pursue excellence not because it's easy, but because they believed it mattered. And in doing so, their influence does not end here tonight. It continues through us. To the families, thank you for sharing them with all of us. We know that the stories we treasure first belong to you. We promise to keep telling them, not only because they deserve to be remembered, but because future generations deserve to know the remarkable men behind those names. The crew of Torch 11 leave behind a standard to live by, stories worth telling, and a legacy that time cannot diminish. May we all carry this weight of 8 with honor.
Colonel Guasco, Lieutenant Colonel McDonald, thank you for those heartfelt remarks. It's now my privilege to introduce the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, General Ken Wilsbach.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Secretary Dr. Troy Mink, Secretary of the Air Force, as well as Simsaf Wolf and myself, I wish we could be gathered here under different circumstances. While there are no words or actions that can adequately express our grief, this ceremony is a sincere and heartfelt tribute to the crew of Torch 11. Thank you to the team who planned and executed this memorial. To wear the cloth of our nation, one must be willing to sacrifice everything to defend the cause of freedom and protect our way of life. It takes a special person to volunteer to live a life of service before self, and it takes exceptional individuals to lead with the highest levels of knowledge, skill, professionalism, character, and credibility. This evening, we honor 8 exceptional individuals. Colonel Gregory Watson, Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Estrella, Lieutenant Colonel Miles Milton, Major Alexander Davis, Major Robert D., Major Brad Hovey, Jeremy Smith, Christopher Richard. As an Air Force and as a nation, we are heartbroken at the loss of these fallen patriots. But our sorrow pales in comparison to the immeasurable grief of their spouses, parents, siblings, and children. I feel inadequate to ease the depth of your pain. But I promise you that my family will continue to pray for you and I will promise you that your Air Force family is ready to provide whatever support and comfort you need. Our hearts go out to you, and we will never forget the ultimate sacrifice your loved ones made for our family, for our country. Each of these airmen left an indelible and irreplaceable imprint on their beloved families, but their influence extends to our Air Force, the global strike and flight test communities, and to the bases, wings, groups, squadrons, and industry partners in which they served. I know the bomber community is close-knit, and nearly the entire B-52 community had the honor of knowing many of the crew members, but the loss of Torch 11 has reverberated across the entire aviation enterprise. I've received numerous condolences from our sister services, fellow air chiefs worldwide, and our allies and partners. As we gather here tonight, it is right to acknowledge and take time to appreciate the courage and bravery of these airmen. Flying involves more risk than many professions. Combat aviation and flight tests only add to that risk. But the mission here at Edwards is vital to our national security. Missions flown here ensure that the capabilities placed into the hands of our warfighters will not let them down. Our test airmen take that risk so our forces can deter adversaries and, if necessary, fight and win. The Torch 11 crew knowingly accepted these risks and continued in order to make the B-52 more lethal and more survivable. Our airmen fly to keep others safe. They risk their lives in combat and peacetime, relentlessly pursuing excellence as combat aviators in the greatest Air Force this world has ever seen. Torch 11 is the embodiment of that ideal. Their names will be forever etched into the legacy of our Air Force and air power itself. When you see a B-52 flying, I hope it conjures up the images of Bobby, Slate, Smo, Botan, Journey, Evil, Vicky, and Hustler at their best. Torch 11, you are among America's finest, and we will never forget you. To the families, friends, teammates, I pray that God will comfort you in these difficult times, and I call on all airmen to support one another as we remember Torch 11.
Thank you, General Wilsbach. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you please stand as we observe a moment of silence while the families place wreaths in honor of our fallen teammates. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Today, we gather in a heavy shadow of a devastating loss. But we do not gather alone. We are Team Edwards. We all share the 412th Test Wing's vision of victory forged by test. Test is what we do. We test equipment, we test capabilities, we test the very limits of physics and engineering to sharpen American air power. We push into the unknown so that others can follow safely. The 8 men aboard Torch 11 were doing exactly that. They were a perfect reflection of this community, a seamless brotherhood of active duty airmen, reservists, Boeing partners, and dedicated civilians. On the morning of June 15th, they stepped onto the flight line under the clear, familiar skies of the Mojave Desert to do the mission as part of their everyday lives. And we were all going about our everyday lives. And then the unthinkable happened. Tragedy struck the epicenter of Edwards Air Force Base, and it struck even deeper at the epicenter of our hearts. In an instant, the very nature of our mission shifted. We who spend our lives testing suddenly became the tested. Scripture speaks directly to this agonizing shift. In the book of James, it says, "Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Today, our joy is obscured by profound sorrow. Our faith is being tested in the crucible of grief. But it is in this very trial that we must look to the legacy of the men that we lost to find the perseverance that we need to carry on. The Gospel of John tells us, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." When we hear those words, we often think of combat. We think of a foreign battlefield. But let us be clear about the nobility of the mission here at Edwards. Our teammates may not have given their lives on a foreign battlefield, but they laid down their lives on these sacred proving grounds. They embraced the inherent risk of flight test so that decades from now, a warfighter downrange will have the technology to survive. That's the purest definition of service. It's a sacrifice born of love. In the narthex of Chapel 1, a memorial wall honors those who have given their lives in flight test. It refers to these brave individuals as pathfinders to new horizons. Currently, that wall has 145 names. I've stood before that wall in the quiet and prayed that we would never have to add any more names. Sadly, with broken hearts, we must make room for 8 more pathfinders. 8 more giants who walked among us and flew above us. Their names are worth repeating again. Colonel Gregory Watson, Lieutenant Colonel Gabriel Estrella, Lieutenant Colonel Miles Middleton, Major Robert D., Major Brad Hovey, Major Alexander Davis, Jeremy Smith, Christopher Richard. Just steps away from that wall in the sanctuary, there's a large stained glass window, and it's called the Test Pilot Memorial Window. It's full of beautiful, symbolic imagery of flight and the heavens, but at the bottom there's a scripture that anchors it all together. It says, "And this is the victory that conquers the world, our faith." To the families here today, I know victory feels very far away. I know you're searching for the why. Why this crew? Why this day? And I can't answer the why. That answer might take a lifetime to find, if it ever comes at all. But while we may struggle with the why, we can answer the what. What do we do now? One of the men that we lost on Torch 1-1 was my neighbor. He lived right across the street from me. Before last week, our connection was mostly limited to passing pleasantries while walking to the mailbox or working on cars in the driveway. But my son shared a memory with me recently that painted a fuller picture of him. He told me about how our neighbor would join the kids on the block for Nerf wars in the street, bringing so much joy to our neighborhood. This tragedy has opened my eyes to how much we miss by not stepping across the pavement to truly know our neighbors. We simply assume there'll be more time for that. In his playful spirit, in his love for his family, and his dedication to the craft, we see a reflection of all 8 of our teammates that we've lost. They weren't just names on a roster. They were fathers, husbands, mentors, and friends who brought light, laughter, and love to those around them. Realizing that they are gone has struck me profoundly. It's made me realize what I need to do going forward. To honor their memory, I need to be a better neighbor, a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better chaplain. The question I ask you today is, what can you do better? We answer the what by how we choose to live in the wake of their sacrifice. And I see Team Edwards doing that right now, gathered in this hangar, carrying each other's burdens and offering encouragement in the midst of loss. As we focus on the what, I would also like to point you to the who. If you look over my shoulder just below the flag, you'll see the numbers 1-1. Those numbers were not planned. We did not design the stage that way. It was just noticed when we were setting up for this memorial. Some might call it a coincidence. I call it providence. Those 2 numbers, representing Torch 1-1, are resting directly beneath the red, white, and blue, the colors of the nation they served so selflessly. Earlier I said this tragedy has made us the tested. This grief is the heaviest, most agonizing test our community and these families could ever endure. But we are Team Edwards. We do not break under the test. Sustained by God's presence, lifted by the legacy of these 8 men, and committed to doing the what for one another, we will weather this sorrow. Because we are leaning on each other, we will come through this trial with flying colors, the very red, white, and blue that they dedicated their lives to defend. That small detail on the stage is a gentle reminder that although we do not always know the why, God's presence is always near. The Apostle Paul wrote, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, struck down, but not destroyed." We are struck down today, but Team Edwards is not destroyed. Many of us in this hangar know the awe-inspiring power of the B-52 Stratofortress. When the engines roar to life, you don't just hear it, but you feel it in your chest. It shakes the earth. But as mighty as that aircraft is, it is bound by this physical world. The power of God's presence is infinitely greater. If the roar of the B-52 can shake the earth, the quiet power of God's presence can bridge heaven and earth. Our 8 brothers are no longer in our physical presence, but we can take profound comfort in knowing they are in God's presence. And the beautiful truth of our faith is this: if we can experience God's presence here and now, then we remain forever connected with them. The powerful presence that holds the universe together is the same presence holding us to them. In God's presence, the space between heaven and earth becomes paper thin, and we are still together. To the men of Torch 1-1, we will not wander from the light you still shed into the darkness. We will honor your sacrifice. We will care for your families. We will continue the mission as you light the way. That's what torches do. You will not be forgotten. May God grant peace to the fallen, strength to the grieving, and comfort us all. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask that you'd please stand for the departure of the families and distinguished visitors. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please join the families outside the hangar doors for the B-52 flyover as we continue our tribute to our fallen teammates. Immediately following the flyover, remembrance ribbons will be provided by the Edwards Spouses Club at the main exit. Thank you for your attendance today.